Hello and welcome to the Heart Hook Home Video Crochet Podcast. This is Ashley and I am in a very special location. I am visiting my sister for the weekend, Meadow, and I did talk about her a couple episodes ago, and yeah, we're gonna have fun.
Now we're visiting.
Right, we've been crocheting and knitting all weekend and it's been absolutely fabulous. And as we were sitting there last night, we were talking about socks. I am crocheting a pair of socks, and we were talking about the differences between knitting socks and crocheting socks, why there are more knitting patterns than there are crochet patterns, what types of yarn we can use, whether you're going to work the socks toe up or top down, and why you would want to do one another way. So yeah. I am going to be the first one to admit that I have only made a few pairs of socks, and I have patterns for both of them. So, I'm not super experienced. That was my first time with the Totally Easy socks. That was the first time that I had worked a short row heel, which is similar. Well, I guess it is this. I'll show you how the edging of this heel is coming together. I'm trying this one as a top-down sock. So I started at the top, I did my ribbing, and I started in with this new stitch that I'm going to have a video tutorial for you too.
I love it.
Isn't it pretty? It looks so nice. It looks like little pebbles. Absolutely love it. So I have gotten, it's nice. It's gotten to the heel and I've started working on the foot now. And so, when I was thinking about the construction of this one, I really wanted to start at the toe and work my way up. What I don't like about that is that it's hard to know for sure that it's going to fit really well, until you get far enough in, and then you're far enough in that when it doesn't fit, you just get mad and you want to throw it in the timeout corner, which is basically what happened. For about 15 minutes, I overcame and pushed through.
I think toes can look kind of funny when it's just the toe. They look like too pointy or too boxed or too squared, you're not sure.
It looked like a triangle.
Yeah.
And I was not happy.
And sometimes it's going to be fine, but you don't know that.
Right. Like with the herringbone socks, which is a super, super popular pattern that I have, and it's a free pattern on Heart Hook Home, I'll link it. But those socks, the toe on those, when I first started crocheting, I was like, this is not correct. But, once you put them on your feet, they'll form and it'll look nice anyway. So the differences between toe up and top down.
Yeah. I think I personally always go top down when I try to do socks. I don't know why. I think it's just because I like to work in the round like that, and I like to have a little bit more control over how tall the calf part of the sock is going to be, and kind of try it on a little bit, feel the fit before I get too far down.
I also think that if you do the top down, once you get past the heel, you're almost done. It's like, woo, it's the long haul first instead of doing the long haul second.
Plus, personally, I like to make gauntlets, the little arm things, and basically that's the same thing.
Yeah, so you could really probably take a sock pattern and turn it into a gauntlet pattern.
Because gauntlet patterns usually start out with a rib and then a section, and then you do something for your hand depending on what you're doing there, thumbs or not. But
so the benefits of top down would be that you get it over with, right? Or you feel like you've accomplished
the
more
bulk of it.
Right.
Yeah. Toe
up, though, in my opinion, is almost better because debate time, right? Because you can have, I have this one fancy sock yarn, Hank, right, that I got that I'm working on, and there's a ton of yarn left. What I don't like about working the top down is that this is as tall as the ankle's going to be. As just it.
Right.
If you work it from the toe up, you can make both socks, get to the ankle part, and then just crochet on both until you run out of yarn. If you want to use up all of the yarn, you can't do that on a top down.
No, you're playing a little bit of yarn chicken with the top down.
Yeah, depending on how tall your ankle is, for sure.
Yeah,
I can see that. Another thing about knitting socks is your lovely.
Yeah, I've got some. These are called double pointed needles, or DPNs, and it's kind of hard to see them. They're not very big. These are wooden ones.
They're not very big.
And then I've got some metal ones here. This is how you make socks if you're going to knit, and you basically have 15, 20 stitches on each needle, and I should have had some, but
they intersect
I'm not working
like a
on.
Square.
Yeah, you end up kind of working on them like this, in the round, but each section is on a different needle. And there are days that I like that kind of brain work, and there are days that I don't like that kind of brain work because it's a lot of repositioning of the needles. Because this is the double pointed needle, your stitches may or may not be able to fall off either end.
Which
yeah,
might be nice to use the wooden needles in that case.
Yeah, that's why I have
so
both.
that the yarn doesn't slip around so much on the wood or bamboo as it would with the
just a tiny bit of bite.
Little grip.
Yeah.
So, and I honestly I think that with that setup with 4 needles, only having so many stitches on each needle, I feel like not only is that tedious, but I mean, time consuming. Like you're constantly having to move and
repositioning your
just
hands
give me
in
my
the
hook
needles
and let me go. Because literally I did this in what?
Oh, I don't know. She's like a
less than an hour almost.
You could use a short circular needle to do socks on. I personally don't like those because I feel like it kind of stretches the yarn a little bit too tight. And so when I do socks, I do this. However, there is a technique if you're a knitter where you can knit both socks at the same time, because maybe that's something else we should talk about that, I don't know about you guys, but if I am going to work on something that takes 2, once I get that first one done, I'm done. Like I can't.
Well, you've got a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
And now you got to start all over again.
Right. And I'm also kind of bad about following a pattern. So I may have, or may not either have a pattern or know what I did with that first one. So I'm not, don't be me.
Which honestly is a good reason to just get it over with now while you still remember what the heck you did.
Oh, I know. But that's not how I live my life.
Like, that's not factored in, really.
I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but our dad wanted a pair of knit socks. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll totally do that. You know, by Father's Day, yeah. Well, Father's Day came and went, and I didn't have one sock. And then the next Father's Day came and went, and I had one sock. And then the next Father's Day came and went. And I don't remember if I had that second sock or not, but it was like a 2-year process.
It could have been like installments.
To get him a pair of socks.
Like the first year, it's like a coming soon, and then the second year, here's part 1.
Yeah, that's how I roll with my socks.
Very nice.
Gauntlets too, but something about the socks, I think it's the heel and the toe. It's just like gauntlets, you know, are just basically like a tube, but
with the slot.
Socks are, you know, got construction elements to them.
Right.
Yeah. Which I do like a short row heel. I do. I just like short rows. I think they're kind of fun to kind of like eat the yarn up as you go past it or something. It's kind of fun. Another way you can do a heel on knitting is to basically like make a flap and then you seam that up as you go. There's lots of different ways to do all of it, of course.
Could you do that with crochet? Because I was sitting there last night and I was thinking, you know, if I were to crochet, because you know you got, and it looks so weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, they look real funky.
Position. But when I get to the point of the heel here, where I start doing the single crochet rows back and forth for the short heel or the short rows, I got to thinking, what if I made a crochet swatch or something that was that many stitches that then decreased and then increased? How would you attach? Or would you? No, because then you could seam it up the heel itself, and then you could just crochet into that.
Yeah,
right.
You could.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of a way to have a little fun pop of color on the heel if you wanted to do that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and experiment with that.
I should experiment with that. Look at you. One of the things about designing crochet socks, and we were talking earlier about the fact that there are just not very many crochet patterns for socks.
But there are a ton of knitting. And like, I know that like people, you know, maybe like fantasize about like, oh, I'm going to knit a pair of socks. That's a high bar. Like I wouldn't recommend jumping into knitting socks for any new knitter. Like it's kind of a lot. Well, especially when you're managing multiple needles or even the small circular needles. So it's definitely something to work up to, but there's a ton of patterns, which is why, you know, I think Ashley's trying to maybe think about some new crochet ones because it's hard to find.
Even with my friend Shannon with Yarn Baby, we were chatting. She's the one that hand dyed this yarn for me, and it's so freaking gorgeous. Look at how marbled it is. It's just, it's like heathered. It's just beautiful. It looks like little stones. I just love it. Right, I love it. But we were chatting about this yarn, and I said, you know, when I share this pattern, there might be people that want to buy this yarn. So are you going to have enough of it, or should I not mention that it came from you? You know what I mean? Do you want the one?
It's so pretty.
Yeah, it's nice. And I got 3 colorways from her that day, and I absolutely love all of them. So this one is more of a men's design. I wanted it to be kind of manly because there's not a lot of men's socks either, right? Yeah. But I am going to use one of the other colorways that I bought from her. I can't remember what it is, but it's red and really, really pretty. It's gorgeous. It's kind of like marbled like this or heathered. But when I'm choosing stitches, I think part of the reason that there aren't a lot of crochet patterns for socks is because that crochet tends to be a bit bumpier, and knitting maybe be a little bit more flat.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And so for the bottom of your feet specifically, I know a lot of people either have, what is that called, where is it plantar fasciitis? Yeah. One of my really good friends has that, and it takes him forever to get up in the morning because it's just like as soon as you touch it. Yeah. So I mean, if you've got any kind of issues or sensitivity issues at all, I mean, you run the risk of you don't want bumpiness. Yeah. And so with the herringbone socks, I chose that stitch because on the back side it's super, super flat. And I did that with this one as well. I was playing around with stitches last night. This is a very plush but very flat stitch, which is nice for the bottom of the feet. I do like it. It is a little bit stretchy, which you want in a sock, right? And that's another thing is as you're crocheting or probably knitting socks, they might look a little small.
Yes.
To begin, and you're like, this is not going to fit my foot.
That is why you want to follow a pattern and not be me and just kind of wing it, because, again, gauge matters, and I've never been good about checking my gauge. Like, Ashley's always like, check your gauge, and I'm like, whatever.
I'm the mean
But that's also why I don't finish things
that's
very
my
well.
First question, but did you check
But
your
I
gauge?
didn't. I never do. But yeah, it could look a little bit different when you're working on socks because, they're meant to be stretched out just a little bit, and I don't know.
And then when you wash them, they'll tighten back up a little bit. But
totally.
Nobody wants floppy socks either.
Right. And I think you raise a good point with the crochet stitches, which is why you want to go with somebody who's made them before and has some experience with the stitches, is that the stitches could end up being kind of open. Mm-hmm. And that might be okay. We were talking about summer socks or something like that.
Socks a thing? They should be a thing. Let's make summer socks a thing.
Right? They're a tad bit holy and breezy, which is kind of weird to say about a sock. Mm-hmm. But I think that the crochet stitches tend towards that, whereas the knitting, you're just usually doing a stockinette or a rib that is, flat and maybe not as inherently holy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was contemplating using maybe for this summer, because I am one of those people that when I'm driving in my car, I always have the foot heater on. I just do. Almost year round, unless it's hot. I just do. I don't know if it's a circulation thing. I don't know. I just do. And so my feet are constantly cold. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should get that looked at.
Maybe.
But for the summer, I was thinking, this Tunisian in the round is something that I really love as well. And I don't know that I have ever seen a sock pattern that's Tunisian.
I think that would be really cool because
it would be
it's
cool.
Kind of woven.
Right. And if it was a worsted weight or something not sock weight, you know what I mean? That wouldn't take forever with a Tunisian.
Yeah.
But we could do like ribbed columns almost, and that would look super cute going up the leg. And you could have it right, and it could be a little bit holy because especially if they're summer socks, you don't need them to be super warm.
Right.
But they could be really. I don't know. I think I'm going to try it.
I think you should try.
I think I should. And if I do that with the worsted, with the Tunisian, I really think they'd work up fast. I really do.
And that's another thing, is I think that that's the thing I like about crochet, is you can just sit down and go and go and go. You can put it down a little bit easier. And I'm telling you right now, when you've got, 20 stitches on each one of these needles, it is tough to put down. It is tough to set aside for a little bit. And this was just I'm gonna run to the restroom and come back, and,
right? And even now, this is just my loop. That's it, and I can throw this down, and I don't even have a stitch marker.
I know, I love it.
But
there really needs to be more crochet socks, just in life.
Yeah, we're gonna do it.
It's silly that
we're gonna
time.
do it. Yeah. So this one, another thing about choosing stitches, which is kind of interesting to me. I did try this. This stitch, I've never used it before. We decided that it's called the Pique. Pique, and I am going to have to
pique your interest.
Right, my interest is piqued. I'm gonna have to do a tutorial for this stitch. But it's basically you complete the first half of a double crochet, and then you complete a half double crochet in the same spot. So it's just kind of, it's not really a cluster and it's not a bobble, but it's just a little bit of a...
you called it pebbles earlier.
It does
and
look
I
like
really
pebbles.
like pebbles.
I think I
that's
might,
what it looks like.
that might have to be the name of this
Maybe
pattern.
so.
Yeah, but what I've noticed is I tried it working, this isn't worked in the spiral, continuous spiral, and I tried it going back and forth, and it was amazing to me, number one, how much the gauge changed. Like it changed by like 4 stitches in 3 inches.
Oh,
That's
wow.
a lot.
Wow.
I went from needing 38 stitches to needing 30 stitches, which is
wow.
huge. Not only for how quick it works up, but just, yeah, I mean, it's just, that's a huge size difference, you know, and especially checking your gauge with socks, definitely important, right?
She's right.
But it worked in the round. I noticed that when I worked this, I tried to turn it back and forth each row, and I noticed, number one, that the gauge was way different, but it didn't have that nice squishy texture to it. And so I think maybe crochet socks specifically, if you're crocheting them and you do not turn, then you're always going to have that flat side depending on what stitch it is. You're always going to have that flat side on the inside for your feet so that you don't have those bumps on the inside as well.
It's a good point, and I remember we talked about it last night at length about like back and forth versus in the round, because crochet looks very different, you know, depending on which one of those you pick.
Yeah. You do also have to take into account that when you're working in a spiral that your stitches will start to migrate, because when you join and turn, it offsets.
Right.
The seam doesn't do this, it goes back and forth and back and forth. So it's a just something to be mindful of when you're working in a spiral, that the seam will migrate, but all you have to do is crochet a little bit more to get back to where you line up on top of, you know, and it's perfectly fine. So
yeah. I love the way that that's coming out.
Me too.
It's very pretty.
It's gonna be really pretty. I'm gonna have to try it with that red color that I got from her. I got a red one and something else, but it's absolutely lovely. I love it.
It's probably mustard.
I know that I do have a mustard sock yarn at home. I sure do. I know exactly where it is.
There are so many great sock yarns out there too. Like it's so easy to find really pretty sock yarns.
Well, it's kind of like when you when I go on vacation as an avid fiber enthusiast, right? Or consumer,
right? All of it,
all of the above. I always have to hit a fancy yarn shop. Yeah, I just have to, even if I don't buy much or buy anything at all. I just have to go touch the yarns, experience it, talk to the people. Right. I don't know that I've ever not bought anything. Now that I think about it, but that's something like. I talk about this a lot. Is like this is my, you know, let's say I got this in, I don't know, Houston. These are my Houston socks, you know, like this is, you can buy one hank of yarn and make a pair of socks. Right. So that's one thing, like you always want to buy at least something, and that gives you an opportunity to actually use whatever it is that you bought.
Yeah. I like it.
These are my Seattle socks, right? My New York.
Right. Plus the size of it means that you can travel with it, like she's doing right now, versus like lugging along a bunch of. That's another thing with sock yarn, is that this is solid color, and that's cool. Some of them are meant to be striped, and they'll self-stripe too.
That's the herringbone.
That's kind of nice. That's right.
Which is kind of interesting, because the Felici yarn that I used, We Crochet no longer sells the Felici yarn. I just think that it wasn't because crocheters don't use sock weight very much or fingering weight. We just don't. You know, we tend to go with the DKs or the worsted weight or, you know, thicker yarns, which is kind of interesting to me because crochet works up so much faster anyway, and then we're using bigger yarns than knitters do, just in general terms, right? Where was I going with that?
I don't know, yarn weights.
Yeah, we were
carrying stuff around.
Oh yeah, carrying stuff around, and how, you know, if you're self-striping. Thank you, Felici. We Crochet stopped selling it. I got it. You got me back on track.
I know.
Look at that.
Sometimes it works.
Sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, they stopped carrying it. But those skeins are 218 yards a piece, which would make sense because most sock weight yarns like this are sold in hanks that are 400-ish yards or so. Yeah. So one skein per sock for that, and then you would use this one skein for both socks of this pattern. So
yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and I really like we were talking about earlier, making both at the same time, even if you're crocheting. I think that's an excellent idea. And then also anything that you have two of, whether you're doing gloves or sleeves on a cardigan, socks, anything that you're doing 2 of, I do recommend, even just to keep your motivation going, or to know where you are on track, or, oh, I changed this row, let me go ahead and crochet this row on this one before I forget or put it down or whatever. But yeah, I think that just doing them both at the same time keeps your motivation going, and make sure that they're the same size.
Yes.
Right?
They're
and
a little more alike.
Right. Yeah. You got one sleeve. It's like on Fraggle Rock when Red comes out in that huge sweater,
Yeah.
And she's like, I got my sweater. And one sleeve is like really long, Yeah. So
it's adorable, but
yeah,
not desired.
Yeah. It's my home sweater. I'm only going to wear it at home. So yeah. Anything else about crocheting or knitting socks?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see new crochet sock patterns.
I know. There needs to be more.
There really does.
We are taking over the world. And I think
does.
that's what I was mentioning when I said I was talking to Shannon about this. Like, are you going to have enough of this colorway if people really like it,
Right.
But she's like, you're making crocheted socks? Like, that's, whoa, like mind-blowing, because they're just not. So let's change that, guys.
Yeah, I get it.
Crochet socks for everyone. All right, well, it was fun hanging out with you guys today. Yeah, I will be back in 2 weeks on the next Friday, and I will show you the new makes that I have coming out in April. I'm super excited. And by that time, these socks will be finished, so I'll be able to model them for you.
I don't know, the certainty with which you say that kind of stuff. Like, I would never say that because, like, I know me.
Oh, it's going to happen.
This is why she's her.
It's going to happen. We're going to do it. It's going to be amazing.
All right.
Yay. Yeah, well, thank you for being my special guest.
Thanks
it was
for
fun.
having me.
It was fun, and thanks for having me in your home.
Yeah. I know, we've had a good weekend.
Yeah, we'll have Forrest on next, right? Yeah, it was super fun. All right, well, you guys have a lovely rest of your day and a lovely weekend, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.